How's it going, YouTube? We're bringing you guys another finals match. Today, we have Yellow Rapid on the left versus Beel Starmon. That is right, Beel Starmon in the finals on the right. This was the box tournament that my locals was hosting that had a mat. You see a similar mat to the one that's on the left player side, except this time it is Black War Greymon. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop on into the gameplay. So you see here on the left, the Yellow Rapid player has a pretty standard start. They are able to drop down a Tamer. Sorry about the glare ahead of time. I'll try to make sure we know what the cards are. But the right player is going to also have a Rookie in Raising, as well as a Labramon to start filling up the trash and digivolving into a Eismon scatter mode. So that way they pretty much have it set up for a little bit of extra discard as long as they can either kill the scatter mode or get the discard off of the scatter mode. And here they end their turn after they evolve up, swinging into the Beel Starmon by playing down a little TK just to get a little bit more cycle, finding everything else. And here the Beel Starmon player does in fact have two scatter modes. Swinging in, of course, the scatter mode does have that jamming, but the second one, unfortunately for the hybrid player, does not. They're able to go ahead and cycle that scatter mode, getting a few more draws and trashes. Here you see that they already have, I believe, 4 level 7 or 7 cost options and a Beelstar in trash, and they're able to just go ahead, drop down a mat, and then end the turn off with a little bit more mill from the analog youth. The opponent's already going to 5, so it doesn't really matter as long as they keep them below that 3 threshold so they don't go up any more via the TK Kari as well as the TK. So here on the Hybrid Rapid side, they are going to have to go ahead and put a little bit more pressure on dealing with this scatter mode. You don't want it to constantly get chipped, even though you don't necessarily want them to get the draw and discard. You do really want the, don't want to have that extra pressure. Because of the fact that Beel Starmon does usually run the 4 scatter modes along with a handful of rookies, you do kind of have to worry about this pseudo rookie rush, especially since they're missing the rookie to not be able to go into the Rapid Mon on follow-up turns. So here they just pass turn to as little as they possibly can, dropping the TK Kari, so choking them at 1. But like I said, they usually run a decent amount of Rapids in Beel Starmon, or rookies in Beel Starmon now. So they will in fact have the rookie back in Raising, and in already, it's only been a handful of turns, but the Beel Starmon player does in fact already have enough options in trash to play the Beel Starmon for 5. Just going ahead and using a Fly Bullet. We don't really show it. I mean, he announces it in the game, but he doesn't really show playing down the, using the Fly Bullet to deal with the body, but it's just going to be met with a follow-up Wyvern's Breath back out to deal with the Beel Starmon. And here they will raise up. Being at 2 memory, they are able to go ahead into the scatter mode for a little bit less memory, or without passing turn, getting swinging in, hitting a Rapid Mon, luckily for them, to go ahead and get even more cycle. I'm not exactly sure how cheap the Beel Starmon is now, but we will see shortly. Here they are going to go ahead, and it's going to be 3. They'll Nailbone fill the board with a Gazimon and a Promote, and then go ahead and put the memory up to 5, since they are already going to getting that little bit of extra memory from the TK Kari. So here, as Yellow Hybrid does, I should say, they go ahead, Digivolve up into the Jet Sylphimon to get a little bit more recovery, a little bit more cycle, but it does in fact meet the Fly Bullet out of security. So now they don't even have to lose a swing on the Beel Starmon's player's side, because they were able to deal with it with a nice security option, which also fills the check or the trash with the 7 cost options to make future Beelstars even cheaper. So here they're going to go ahead, swing in at the Yellow Rapid player. They will live every single check, so having 3 bodies on board, this pretty much keeps the Yellow Hybrid player in check without anything else to go into. The Yellow Hybrid player is going to go ahead and scoop and pass it on to game 2. So as you tend to do against the Beel Starmon players, and as playing a hybrid deck in general, you are going to go ahead and opt to go second here, hoping that they have to give you a little bit more memory. Maybe they have to hard slam something. Maybe they don't have any one of their cheaper options, and that's in fact what happens here. The Beel Starmon player does hard slam the scatter mode. Isn't really the worst play, because it's like, if you remove it here, I get a little bit more cycle, and they aren't fully punished because all the Yellow Rapid player has is a Rapid Mon to hard slam, passing them back over to 2, and thankfully they will go ahead and swing in their scatter mode. It will die to security, getting them more cycle, and then here they'll go ahead and be able to Digivolve up into the pretty much the god stack for the Beel Starmon player, BT2 Gabumon into the scatter mode. So now that if it dies, they will get plenty of draws, plenty of cycle, and then just end it off with a analog youth to get a little bit more cycle. Usually you're not even caring about picking anything up other than a Beelstar, so you just like to get that little bit of trash filled up. So, and then passing them back over, they will just go ahead and swing in. They will hit the Rapidmon will die, and then they'll hit a Cody or they'll play the Cody, and then the Beel Starmon player will go ahead, swing in with the scatter mode. As scatter mode tends to do, it will go ahead and live the security check, hitting the TK. So even though they don't really have the extra advantage here, the TK player or the yellow hybrid player now has the TK and the Cody. Unfortunately, they don't have the yellow Digimon, so they won't gain that little bit extra memory. But now that they're always starting at 3, so even though Beelstar is not usually known for choking, they will not be able to choke fully. And then they'll just calling to cycle their own scatter mode so that they can get a little bit of extra draw power. The typical purple play where they go ahead, kill their own scatter mode, and then cycle a little bit more, and then just end it off with another scatter mode, passing them over to their 3, 4. It's not really matter in this situation, but this time the yellow hybrid player does have tamer setup, so they are able to go into the Sylphimon, live the check, thankfully hitting the Gwalt Schwarmer, and then they will go ahead and play down a Cody, passing the turn back over to the Beel Starmon player, who will then just swing in as normal with their scatter mode, get a little bit more cycle. They have the rookie in back. The scatter mode is dead, and the only unfortunate thing here is if you can see the hand, there is no Beelstar. Now, the crucial part, as the name of the deck states, is having Beel Starmon. And not having a single Beel Starmon is very much a struggle for this deck. I don't even believe he has one in Trash where he would have gotten it off the calling. So it's either in the last few cards, like the bottom half of his deck, or in the security stack, which is very unfortunate for the Beelstar. So they'll just go ahead, play a mat, so they can get the calling back, maybe in case a Beelstar comes out of security, and then passing them back over to their 3 memory. So here the yellow rapid player will get a little bit more memory at the start of the turn thanks to the Cody, so they'll just go ahead, Digivolve up into the Ophanimon, swinging into the security, finding one of the Beelstars for the Beel Starmon player. So knowing that they have the calling, it's not really the best thing in the world, but here they do a little bit of a risky play in my opinion. They play Reinforced Memory Boost. They know that the Eden's Javelin is there, so the purple player knows that this Gabumon's straight up going to die, and without having the scatter mode, they just go ahead, swing it in, get a little bit more cycle. I'm surprised they give them so much memory, because here, since you know they have the calling off of the mat, you know that they're going to get that Beel Starmon back, which at this point, Beel Starmon is relatively cheap. I believe it is only 2 memory at this point, so they are going to go ahead, grab back a Gabumon, grab back a Beelstar. Kind of surprised they didn't grab a scatter mode, but at the same point, they do probably want a little bit more cycle from the Gabumon. So here they just go ahead, play the Beel Starmon for 2. They have access to the Fly Bullet or just any removal spell. Personally here, I may have gone for the Cocytus Breath, but they don't have the blue tamer on field. That is purple mat, not blue mat. So they aren't able to go ahead and just bounce it back into the stack. So here they'll just use the Analog Youth for 0, or putting them to 1, cycling a little bit more, finding a Beelstar, and then able to just go ahead, use another removal spell, or removal option, I should say, getting rid of the Rapidmon, and then just go ahead, Digivolve into the Zord Defeat to take out one of the Tamers. Not really worried about Cody, especially since the Rapidmon's gone, so Zord Defeat taking out the TK is a pretty solid choice. So here with the Beel Starmon player going into Zord Defeat is a very strong card in the meta. It helps deal with a lot of the Tamers. There are a decent amount of decks that require effective use of the Tamer, even stuff like Imperial. Mastemon not as much, even though the Kari helps, but against blue and yellow hybrid, which we were kind of expecting to see. There are a few still blue hybrid players at our locals, but after seeing the yellow hybrid do really well at the regional, then it wasn't a big surprise to see the yellow hybrid come into force, and here Zord Defeat is very strong. Zord Defeat also gives them access to, if this thing dies, then they are able to go ahead and use both Analog Voice to gain a little bit of extra memory. If it dies through security check, or if they have to use a removal spell, or removal option I should say, then they have to give up a little bit more memory to deal with the Zord Defeat. So, but on the yellow hybrid player turn, they're just going to do yellow hybrid things, Digivolve up, swing in, get a little bit of recovery off the Jet Sylphie, and then just go ahead and play down the TK to get their memory tamer back and find out what's in their security. So here, even though the Beel Starmon player is putting on their pressure, they do have quite a decent amount of security left. The Beel Starmon player is going to go ahead, swing in with the Zord Defeat, hoping it dies, and then unfortunately for him, it will hit a Wyvern's Breath, which instead of targeting the Zord Defeat, because even though Zord Defeat doesn't really do much, it keeps him from getting that little bit of extra memory off of the Analog Youths. So he will just go ahead, target the Beel Starmon, so it won't have another play, and if they have another Zord defeat, they won't be able to use Zord defeat to take out another one of their tamers. So here they'll just try to make his best use of the memory they can, drop down a Gazimon so they can Digivolve up into a blocker, into the Vilemon. No extra memory gain, so if the cheapest you can really do is put them down to 2 or put them to 1 memory, then here is pretty much the best thing that you can do. So here the yellow player is just going to go ahead, do exactly the same play as Yellow Hybrid always does, exactly what they did last turn. Go ahead and raise up, Digivolve the Tamer up into a Jet Sylphimon, getting a little bit of extra recovery here, keeping him at 4 security. Even though the Beel Starmon player has done pretty good at putting the pressure on, just the constant recovery is very, very hard for the deck to deal with if they don't have the full OTK. And you notice that they saw their Beel Starmons very, very late in the stack. So here they will just go ahead. Hitting the rookie is also a strong thing, because if they have access to Rapidmon with 0 security, even if the Beel Starmon player drops down an extra blocker, if they have access to Rapidmon with another Tamer, if they drop it here, then they are able to just go ahead and suspend both blockers, since there are 2 Tamers for the Rapidmon, and it doesn't even matter that if they would pass turn or not, as long as they're able to have that little bit of extra memory, just being able to get past the 1 blocker and not pass turn, and then just swing in with either Hybrid or Rapidmon pretty much seals the deal for the Yellow Hybrid player. So here the Beel Starmon player will just go ahead, raise up 4 security. Kind of hard to get through, especially if I think he's already used, I think this list only runs 2 callings. So only running 2 callings means that there's no real chance that they are able to get their Beel Starmons back. I believe they have plenty in trash at this point, but without access to another calling, they're not really going to be able to get it back to go for that crazy OTK that you usually expect here. So they'll just start swinging in, checking security. It's 2 Tamers. This is the exact last thing that you want to see happen here, because now at this point, the Rapidmon is able to suspend multiple Digimon. So here he does in fact have the other blocker, so he drops down the Vilemon, but here the Yellow Rapid player is going to go ahead and raise up. You see the Rapidmon in hand. They're going to go ahead and pop the boost. Not really necessary, but they are able to go ahead and suspend down both of the blockers. Even he'll be able to neg down any of the suspended Digimon, but here you just see the Hybrid player or the Beel Starmon player scoop it up, because now they have nothing to block with, so they will just go ahead and go on into game 3. Now on into our game 3, the Beel Starmon player, of course, they want to go second so they can make use of that little bit of extra memory, maybe to play down a Tamer or play down a Scatter Mode. They will just go ahead and opt to go second here, and the Rapidmon player is going to go ahead and have the Tamer, pretty much standard, and passing back over to 3, they'll go ahead, try to keep them as little memory as possible. Having the 2-cost blue mat is very solid, along with the Analog Youth to get a little bit more cycle, and then the rookie in Raising. This just passes them over at 1 memory, since they don't quite have a memory tamer, and they also don't have a rookie. This will allow the Yellow Hybrid player to just go ahead, not worry about it, set up another Tamer. The Gazimon swings in, and unfortunately for the Beel Starmon player, does not die, so they don't get a little bit extra cycle, and it does in fact just hit a yellow memory boost. Not really what you want to see, especially now that they have a decent, like 2 Tamers is pretty solid, and they're able to go up from there. So they just drop an Analog Youth and then just pass them the 3 memory. I guess no cheaper way to do that. Analog Youth gives them a little bit of cycle, and then get a little bit extra cycle with the Labramon. And here you'll just see exactly what Yellow Hybrid does, go up in a Jet Sylphie. Man, this card needs to be dealt with. It's just, it allows too many plays, and you can just play a base of Yellow Hybrid and then just be able to get the recovery here. It's just all around a solid deck, and almost will always stay a solid deck unless something happens to this card, because it is just constant consistency, constant recovery, constant easy access to a big body. I mean, recovery +1 is very solid. So here you'll see it'll swing in, never punished. They will just go ahead, hit the Analog Boy, so it will stay, and then just deal with the field a little bit. They will go ahead and just use an Eden's. Passing them over to a bunch of memory when they don't have access to a cheap Beelstar isn't really the worst thing. Eden's gives them a little bit of draw and just deals with a threat. So here they'll go ahead, pass them back over, Digivolve up into a Scatter Mode, and of course, Scatter Mode doesn't die. Scatter Mode has that jamming that you always expect, and then they will just go ahead, Digivolve the Gatomon or the Gabumon in the back, and then play down another Analog Youth, and you hate to see it. If the list only runs 2 calling, seeing a calling go like that is very painful, especially if you don't have access to the mat to really give that, to get those options back. And at this point, you're already given a decent amount of memory. Having the reinforced memory boost out, having the dual Tamer kind of hurts, but fortunately for him, he does in fact hit the calling out of security with the Salamon, so the Salamon doesn't get any recovery regardless, but that little bit of extra pressure is nice, and being able to get that calling back for the purple player is very solid. But here you'll see that I don't think we've seen any Beelstars. He may have 1 or 2 in hand, but the trash isn't quite filled up to the point that you would want it to be without having to be able to pass too much memory over. And here they're able to just Digivolve Digivolve up into the Zephyrmon, get a little bit more cycle. Sure, the Zephyrmon dies. That just fills up the trash a little bit more to have access to maybe a Susan play. I don't really think you expect to give, unless you have the perfect tamer setup, to use Susan in this matchup. You want to try to deal with the speed of how much they can mill. So here he's going to hope that he can just leave the scatter mode on field, I would imagine, so that he doesn't have to go ahead and worry about as much cycle, and they will just go ahead, drop a yellow memory boost, passing them over to their 3 memory that they're already going to start at thanks to the purple mat. Now here you'll see the Beel Starmon player will go ahead, raise up the Gabumon, thinking about swinging over the Salamon. Just go ahead, we know they have the calling, so it's not really the worst plan to do. You don't really want to trade the Gabumon, and that's exactly what they do. They'll swing over the Sala. It won't get the recovery just yet because they are at less than 3 security, or more than 3 security, and they'll just use the calling to get a Gabumon or it looks like the Vilemon and another scatter mode back. So they'll get a little bit more draw here off of the scatter mode that they deleted for calling's effect, discarding plenty of 7-cost options, and we already know they have a scatter, so what would you expect other than scatter to come up? So we'll go ahead, swing scatter, and of course scatter is not gonna die. I mean, it's yellow hybrid. There's so many things that don't kill the scatter, so many option cards that they could hit, or so many tamers. So we all know scatter mode's got jamming, so he'll swing in, already using the calling. You see he has another calling in hand, but no real good way to use it at this point. If he has tamers, then he has tamer or hybrids, and he's able to go ahead and climb up. So here he just plays it a little safe and drops the Vilemon, passing it back over to 5. Luckily they don't get the extra memory from the Cody because they don't get that memory until the main phase, and he has no bodies on board. So here we see them kind of deliberating what they have in hand. We see all 4 Kazemon, so they can't quite push for game. They don't have quite enough hybrids or enough memory with the blocker on field. So they're just going to go ahead at 5 memory. They'll hard drop the Pata, go to 2, pop both of the boosts, gain another 5 memory because they did have a reinforce and a regular yellow memory boost, going up to 7 memory. This will allow them to go ahead and use the Patamon to suspend down both bodies and then take out the scatter mode. Now the Patamon will gain them a little bit of extra memory. They'll go to 4, but unfortunately if they want to deal with the Vilemon, they're going to have to swing over with one of their hybrids because of the fact that the Rapidmon can't attack. They can't just go ahead and use Cody to go ahead and deal with the Vilemon and then also check a security and not really have to worry about being deleted because of the armor purge, unless they hit something like a Wyvern's Breath out of security, or a Cocytus Breath I should say. So here they'll go ahead, Digivolve up into the Kazemon, swing in, hitting a Gwalt Swarm of the Kazemon will in fact live, Digivolving the second Cody up into another Kazemon, swinging in, it will hit a scatter mode, so now both of them lived. So now at this point the Beel Starmon player is looking kind of dire straits. They have a suspended Vilemon that could easily get dealt with on the following turn, even if they don't delete it this turn. Without having access to multiple Beelstars and going crazy, it's not really much they're going to be able to do, especially with a guy in raising, a armor purge Digimon, and 2 hybrids on field. So yellow hybrid player will just go ahead, do the smartest thing in my opinion, just pass turn, putting those little memory as possible, only at 3. So unless they're able to just hard combo off, I don't know quite how expensive a Beelstarmon is, but if it's not exactly like 1 or 2 memory, there's not really much they're going to be able to do to clean up this game with a board state the way it is, unless they're able to just double go waltz for less than 1 or 2 memory apiece. So here you'll see the players both counting exactly how many 7-cost options and 3 Musketeers they have in trash. I should just say Beelstars because this list is not running any other 3 Musketeers other than Beelstar. And you'll kind of see the Beelstarmon player thinking it is just 9 cards, so the Beelstarmon is just going to be 3 memory. Here you could easily use something like Fly Bullet, or use something like Gewalt, which is exactly what he'll do. He'll go ahead, take Fly Bullet back, and then go ahead and use Gewalt, clearing off his own board and then purging down to the Patamon. Now here, unless he does have the separate Beelstar, so he is able to go ahead and just play down the Beelstar, play a Nailbone to play out both the Vilemon and a body. But the only unfortunate thing here is since the Vilemon is gone, and if he doesn't have a second Vilemon, then access to the Rapidmon is just going to go ahead, suspend it down, get that little kill, so the Patamon will end up giving them a little bit of extra memory, and the blocker will be suspended, and the yellow hybrid player will go ahead and take game 3. And that'll be the match, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that one as much as I did. This match was very nice to see. I mean, yellow hybrid's always going to be around in the meta. It's very, very strong continuously, and it's always nice to be Beelstar at the top tables as well. It just got kind of little bit outpaced there when you can't find your Beelstars, which is always unfortunate. But if you guys did enjoy the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, hit that notification bell for when you know my videos go live, and leave any comments down below about any questions you had about the game or the video. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.